Okay, this is a follow-up to a video I made back in December 2022 after the comptroller went to the city council and disclosed $25 million in property taxes that are in arrears across 1,200 properties. So the comptroller appeared before the city council again with an update and a new resolution request in the middle of August. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to talk about that. Okay, so just for some background, obviously everyone has to pay property taxes paid to the city. Until recently, the city would distribute a share of the taxes to Westchester County and the school district. Now the school district is collecting its own taxes. I think it's been doing that for the last couple of years now. So that portion of your property taxes are collected directly by the school district. However, if those taxes aren't paid, um, once they fall into arrears, the city is the municipality that will collect those outstanding school taxes on behalf of the school district. That's because the school district doesn't have that authority to foreclose on a property or put a tax lien on the property and go after the taxes directly. So the city has to do that. And a quirk of the law requires that the city makes the school district whole, even if they're still struggling to collect those taxes themselves. So this sort of ties the fates of the district, school district, and the city together. So, of course, it's a problem when people don't pay their taxes. This is part of our social contract with one another as a society, that we pool our resources to get things done that we can't do on our own. So when someone doesn't pay their property taxes, they fall into arrears or they're considered delinquent on their property taxes. If that goes on for long enough, I think it's after 2 years, if you haven't done it, then the city can initiate a foreclosure process in an effort to collect that tax debt. Um, in Mount Vernon, the foreclosure process has not been initiated for the last decade. Even if people fell into arrears, the city has not tried to foreclose on anybody in the last decade. So let's go back to the December 2022 City Council meeting where Comptroller Morton gave a report on these tax arrears.
You need to know that we have finally compiled what is a very preliminary list of properties that would qualify for in rent. Hold on to your seats. So based upon that information, we have 1,200, a little bit over 1,200 properties that would come onto that list. And the amount of base without interest, without penalties, without interest or without penalties, the base tax that is owed is $25 million. And now this does span all the way back to like pre-2008 or so. I mean, but the majority of that is from 2015 to 2021.
Okay, so that the controller reported back in December of 2022, $25 million in arrears across 1,200 properties, excluding any interest or penalties. So that's just the principal that was owed. He said it's a very preliminary list. I want to make note of that because apparently it's still a preliminary list, which I'm a little troubled by that. Back then, the solution that was offered was legislation that would grant amnesty on the interest and penalties if the principal was paid by a certain date. I think it was if the principal was paid by maybe April of 2024. I don't know. I don't remember exactly, but it was around there sometime this spring. I think if you had paid the principal, then the interest and penalties are waived. May have even been if you initiated setting up a structured payment plan with the city, then they would waive the prior any interest and penalties, which is fine with me. I think that's if that works and you get the principle, fine. Did it work? Well, in December 2022, there was 25 million in arrears. As of August 2024, that number has ballooned to 54 million in arrears. So I don't know that it worked. So now let's come to the present. August 12th, 2024, Comptroller Morton came before the city council at the work session and he spoke again. So let's jump over and listen to a little bit of what he had to say then.
So let me give you quickly kind of some background. So for the last 2.5 years, my office has sent out minimally 4 notices to everyone who is outstanding in their taxes. What we have provided to you all is basically this, again, preliminary listing. It is not a finalized list. That's why it has not become a public list of those that have not responded to us with all of our notices at all. In addition to also that we have the list of those who have requested payment plan. So the information that I provided to you that amounts to $54 million worth of outstanding taxes are for those who have not responded to any of our requests at all. The breakdown that I've also provided to you also shows what the amount is for 1 family, 2 family, 3 family, what is for commercial, what is for industrial, what's vacant lot, so that you would have a breakdown of each of those categories based upon property type. The Part P is designed for us as a city to decide what do we want, which of these properties do we want to go out for our tax lien sale. And it's for us to decide because, again, as you know, previously this year, you all have adopted a change in the payment plan, which will help some of those properties to be able to decide that they may wish to take action of a payment plan, and some of that number of the 1, 2, 3 families may come down. But as it pertains to the those other categories, those would be subject to a payment plan that may not be quite as realistic, and 2, they have not. So I think that we have to at least the RP out for whatever categories of properties that we decide that we wish to actually move forward with the tax lien sale on.
Okay, so that's the picture. If you want to go and watch, it's at minute 1, 14:35 of that city council meeting. The city of Mount Vernon has a YouTube page. You can find all the videos there. So the comptroller informs us that a minimum of 4 notices were sent out to everybody who is outstanding in their taxes. He provided the city council with a list of those who have not responded to any of those requests to pay your taxes. And as he did in 2022, he notes that the list is preliminary. And he says that's why it hasn't been disclosed to the public. I guess that kind of bothers me. It's still considered a preliminary list. It seems to me that they don't want to release the list to the public. It could be that there are, properties on that list that it might be embarrassing. If the ownership was revealed that they are delinquent on their property taxes. I think the problem is the level of description he gave us for the information he's providing to the city council suggests that this is more than preliminary. And also, what would it take for it to be final and no longer preliminary? It seems to me you could just continue to throw the word preliminary in front of it and use it as a pretext for not disclosing this to the public. I think that's wrong. I think he differentiated the people who have sought out a payment plan for back taxes. We don't need to know anything about that. That's the people standing up and trying to resolve this. But the comptroller also described the list of people who have not responded to all of the overtures made by the city to get this straightened out. He also noted that that list has been categorized: single family, two family, three family, commercial, industrial, vacant. That sounds like much more than a preliminary list. It sounds like it's been closely analyzed. I don't see any reason why this list should not be made available to the public. The comptroller has given us no compelling reason why, other than throwing the word preliminary in front of list. That just seems insufficient to me. I don't know whether this would be available upon FOIL. Maybe it's worth testing that. The other thing is, clearly, if they do an RFP and they sell the liens, then at that point, it would be hard to claim that it's a preliminary list. But at that point, they may claim, oh, we don't, it's no longer our list to hand out. It just seems like, this is more keeping the public in the dark. And, we have a compelling interest in this, people who pay their taxes on time, to know what's going on. So it's $54 million. As I said, the comptroller also mentioned that he's provided a list of the people who have requested a payment plan. Good for them to try and get this sorted out. The legislation that was offered up, let's just quickly take a look at the legislation. This is the legislation. Here you can see there's a total over $50 million. One thing I thought that was interesting was that in discussing the city has not initiated in rem proceedings since 2014. It notes this recent Supreme Court decision, this Tyler versus Hennepin County, and the impact that has on the cost effectiveness of executing in rem foreclosure. Just briefly, what that is, and many states already have this. This basically says if Chris McDonough falls into arrears on his property, and the city forecloses on my property, if they sell my property and they collect the taxes that are owed and any fees or legal fees or other administrative costs that required, or I should say that were incurred in the collection process, they deduct that from the sale price and the rest is returned to me. So they sell my house for $400,000. I owed them $50,000. It cost them another $25,000 in administrative costs and legal costs. You subtract the $50,000 and the $25,000 from the $400,000. That's $325,000 left. That money is returned to me. In the past, in New York, that's the way it works in many states and the way it has worked. That makes sense. There's no reason why the government should profit from that. Should be made whole, but they shouldn't profit. But here in New York and I guess in other states, Minnesota, which I think is where this case stems from, the municipality was allowed to keep it. So here it's called cost effective. I think really what it was is we're no longer able to profit off of other people's misery. In some cases it was misery, in other cases it was just people flouting the law. But this makes sense to me. I don't see why that would be a reason to slow the process down. You're allowed to recoup reasonable legal and administrative costs as part of the process, so it shouldn't affect things. It's a little more complicated. I think the comptroller notes at one point having to set up escrow accounts for the different properties to manage this, doing the sale. Yeah, this is a good reason why you don't stop the process for 10 years. You have a sound procedure in place for managing this on an ongoing basis, so you never get into this situation. The fact that this hasn't been done in a decade is really why this is so onerous now for us. But anyway, that's the you can see the legislation in there. And there's a letter from the controller as well, just restating more or less the same stuff. So that's the legislation. The city council passed it. City council members expressed their thoughts. I would encourage people, I'm not going to play the videos of the back and forth. There was a lot of back and forth between council member Brown, council member Poteet. Just sort of some subtle nuances in their positions on this. Not a major rift, but just a slightly different approach to things. But you can pick that up at the city council work session of August 12th at minute 49:56. I would encourage people to go and watch that. We do have another election coming up for the city council. I don't know if three of the city council members will be up for re-election should they choose to run again. Ed Poteet, Daniel Brown, Caitlin Gleason. The controller will as well. So I think it's important to avail yourself of these instances where they are talking and giving us their thoughts, their decision-making process, because they rarely ever do that. So when they do, listen up. And again, they talked a little bit at the actual meeting on Wednesday. You can go to minute 140, 48 and hear just a little bit about it. Daniel Brown brought up this idea of establishing a community land trust in Mount Vernon. In fact, the planning commissioner Rouse was asked to come up and talk a little bit about that, and talk about how other municipalities are doing it. He was tasked with doing some research on that. The issue with that, and it's a potentially interesting idea that could solve some of the problems related to the fears around displacement of people. The problem is the timing of this. It's a lengthy process to set that up. It's a complicated process that takes years, and we're nowhere near that. So if we need money now, and by all accounts we need money now, the community land trust is not a process that we can wait on. Poteet talked on the flip side about the moral hazard of having no consequences for people who are delinquent on their taxes. I raised that issue in the video I brought up that I made in December of 2022. And that's a real concern. But he was sympathetic to the idea of community land trust, but pointed out that we're a long way from doing that, and we need to get cash in the door now. So yeah, that was their take on it. The other council members made a few points as well, but the back and forth between Daniel Brown and Ed Poteet stuck out to me. It sounds like what they're thinking of doing, and you'll hear the controller say this too, is take one or two of the categories, maybe the industrial lots that are in arrears and the vacant lots that are in arrears, and sell those off. Of course, the thing is, when you sell, you're not going to get 100 cents on the dollar. You're going to take a significant hit on that. So we're not going to be able to collect all of that, but that sort of as a test case, see how that goes, and then continue to try and get people to pay up the delinquent taxes. One other thing that came up, and then I'm going to stop this, is that everyone seemed to share the goal of preventing displacement, and then the gentrification of the city, which would mean, I don't know. I think gentrification, the term, has been used so much that it's kind of lost meaning. It's kind of used as a boogeyman. We don't want gentrification, and then people say, okay, any idea that might involve people moving in who can afford to pay their taxes is frowned upon. I don't quite understand that rationale. Seems to me it has more to do with political control. But certainly, and I've said this before in other videos, if you have, for example, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. We don't need to share this anymore. If you have, for example, senior citizens who are on a fixed income, they're struggling to pay their taxes, then yes, we want to work with them. The problem with that 54 million is, according to the controller, these are properties where the city has made multiple attempts to strike a deal with the property owners, and they have just been ignored. So I think that's a different situation. So anyway, just an update on that. I don't know where it'll go, but enjoy your day.